What is going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's show. You're listening to On the Pipe Podcast, and this is OTP Tuesday. We got a really good show coming at you guys tonight, so I want to give you a quick rundown. First, we're going to talk to the factory beta rider of Cody Barnes. Cody Barnes racing this past weekend on that 252 smoke for that factory beta team. He grabs the Pro 2 victory, so he comes on, talks to us about that. We also go in depth a little bit about the knee injury that took him out last year. We talk a little bit about his XC3 battle from last year and his mindset and his attitude coming into 2020 as he's looking good so far this season. We talk a little bit of National Enduro, we talk a little bit of GNCC, and we talk a lot to Cody Barnes. It's a really good interview. And then after him, we have XC Gear Enduro Engineering Husqvarna rider of Ryder Lafferty. Ryder Lafferty, a former NEPG, so National Enduro Pro 2 champion back in 2018. He is racing that Open Pro 1 class this year. He grabs his first ever overall podium on the weekend at the Cherokee National Enduro. So really cool to be able to chat with Ryder. We get a little bit of insight of his training program. We listen to how the race went this past weekend for him. And then I brought up some stuff that he probably didn't want to talk about from his past. Couple races last season. There was a full gas that he almost won in 2018 and ended up getting injured in the final test of the weekend. We talk about that a little bit, and then we also brought up the Mason-Dixon GNCC that he led 98% of. He led up until about 2 or 3 miles away from the finish line. So we get his thoughts on that and all things Ryder Lafferty. So it was a really good interview as well. A really cool show for you guys. I'm pumped to bring it at you. It all happens right now on the Pipe Podcast.
10 seconds.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah.
Everybody, welcome all of you copycats and kittens. This is another episode of On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepherdson, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday, June the 9th, 2020, for another episode of OTP Tuesdays, where we bring you all of the insider information from the weekend prior and looking forward to the next weekend of racing as well. So, thank you for dropping in. Thank you for joining us. If you like that intro music, you're not alone, because that was recorded and performed and written by former 250 Supercross West champion Justin Hill, and also our buddy of the show, Devin Byram. So the two of them got together with their creative genius minds, and that is the OTP intro. So pretty cool to have Devin and Justin Hill playing that intro. So I always like to give them a shout out because I think it's a pretty cool intro. Also, we got Big Tom talking on the beginning of it in an unreleased episode that I still haven't put out, but it's on my computer. Maybe one day, if we get enough interest, we'll put out the episode that clip from Big Tom came from at the beginning of the intro. So it was definitely an interesting one. Definitely a couple adult beverages enjoyed during that one. So I got that one in the books. Maybe we'll drop it on a rainy day or something. Anywho, thank you for joining us. This is a weekly event, a weekly occurrence. So I'm glad to see each and every one of you back out here for another episode of OTP Tuesday. Got a lot of stuff that we're looking forward to coming in the future of On the Pipe Podcast. Don't want to give too much away, don't want to reveal too much, and I also don't want to tell you guys something else that doesn't end up happening, like last week. Still, those interviews, I'm not even going to touch on the subject, but sorry that the show promised or the interviews promised didn't come out. It was really some stuff beyond my control, and that's really all I can say about that. I will also say that Taylor Jones is ready and willing. She was ready to do a show. I want to sit down and do a full show with Taylor. There's a lot to talk about with Taylor. So she got 4th place last GNCC. She'll be going into this weekend undoubtedly wanting to get her first win of the season. So we'll be catching up with Taylor Jones sooner rather than later. But right now, the things we got to talk about is, for one, your graphic needs for your dirt bike. If you want your dirt bike to look like the best dirt bike out on the track, then you certainly need Armored Graphics. Armored Graphics is a good friend of the show. You can check them out, armoredgraphics.com, or on the social medias at Armored Graphics. Let them know you're an OTP listener. Tell them you got promo code OTP, and they'll get you a little hookup, a little deal ski on the side. Get yourself a shirt, get yourself a hat, get yourself some stickers, get yourself some number plates. Do whatever you need to do. You can do it at armoredgraphics.com. So big thank you to Armored Graphics, as they are, like I mentioned, good friends of the show. Paul Sajak, he's been on the show several different times. So thank you to them for their continued support. And thank you for all your continued support. I always forget to ask this, but whatever you're listening to this on, I try to make it as easy as possible. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Stitcher. We're on a bunch of podcast apps that I've never even heard of. We're on YouTube. We're on the internet at onthepipepodcast.com. Wherever you are listening to this at, can you please do me a favor? Go back to the show's main page and click that subscribe button. It'll help you stay up to date. And if you feel so inclined, please leave a review. At the beginning of the show, we had some playback issues that I didn't know how to deal with at the time, where our mic kind of skipped around and the audio went in and out, and it sounded like crap. Because of that, you couldn't really keep up with the conversation, and because of that, I had a bunch of people give me a 1-star rating. And that's when we were in our growing pains, trying to figure everything out. So I'm trying to get that rating back up, but only if you enjoy the show. If you don't enjoy the show, don't give me a good rating. It's as simple as that. I don't want anything that I didn't earn. So yeah, if you like the show, give us a rating. Leave us a review. Subscribe. That would be the coolest thing. Subscribe. Tell a friend about it. We are the only off-road podcast, and you may be thinking to yourself, it's not the only podcast. There's other podcasts out there. We're the only off-road podcast covering off-road, especially on a weekly basis. But if you search a podcast app where you can get your podcast, OTP is the only off-road podcast. So keep that in mind. On the Pipe Podcast, we're here. We're not going nowhere. And also keep in mind that anything that you hear on this show, you can tune into various other shows next week and hear the same exact thing, because we're trendsetters, and that's the way that we like to do it. But enough about that. Let's get into this past weekend. This past weekend, there was a Mid-East Hare Scramble. I know there was a million local series races. Mid-East is right in my backyard. That is my go-to local series. And there was also a National Enduro. Brody Johnson, we talk about him every single week for either grabbing a top amateur honors at a GNCC or winning the pro class at the Mid-East Hare Scrambles. He did the latter once again this weekend. He is your overall pro winner at the Mid-East Hare Scrambles. Awesome job for him. He goes out there, and if you look up how many Hondas have won some Mid-East overalls in the past, I don't know, let's say 5, maybe even longer, 5 to 7 years, something like that. It is astronomically Hondas. Trevor Bollinger, he's a local guy to where we're at too. He wrapped them things up all the time on a JCR Honda until he ended up making the move to Husky. And now we got the Johnson brothers, Brody Johnson and Jonathan Johnson, both on those Phoenix Racing Hondas, and they've been grabbing the wins. So Honda, if you look at their overalls for the Mid-East, they've been winning some races. So I talk about the Mid-East. It's a little bit of a sore spot in my heart. It was on Sunday, the first race that I have ever quit willingly. And I know you guys don't care about it. I know you guys want to hear about other things. But it has been something that is bothering me. It is Tuesday night, and it still bothers me that I pulled off the racetrack on Sunday because quitting is usually not in my vocabulary. Come from a wrestling background. I think that's one of the most mentally demanding sports that there is. I think it's something like 89% of all U.S. Navy SEALs were high school wrestlers, and that's certainly not a coincidence. And that is the environment that I grew up in pretty much my whole life. And so for me to willingly quit a race, it really bugs me because I've seen people close to me quit races. I've seen friends quit races. I've seen pro riders quit races. And my sentiment in every single one of them, in every situation, was, oh my God, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Oh crap, is your bike okay? Did something happen? No, the bike's fine. The very first thing in my mind is, then why the hell are you here? Why are you at the truck? Why are you not at the track? What do you mean? You just quit? And my mindset will never change on that. And I don't care if you're in 11th place. Let me change it to me. I don't care if I'm in 11th place. I have a 19th place plaque. No lie. I have a 19th place plaque from Unadilla GNCC in 2016. And I rode as hard for that 19th place plaque as I would if I was battling for the overall win in the morning. And first of all, I think it's hilarious that I have a 19th place plaque. But they usually give plaques to the top 30% of people in classes. That particular day at Unadilla, there were 76 people in my class, so that's how I got a 19th place plaque. But that's just my attitude. That is my mindset. And once you start something, you have to finish it. If you're able to and your machine is able to, you have to finish it. And that is why this bugs me so damn much that I did not finish this race. It is something that has been eating at me. Anytime someone asks me about how the race went, I'm like reluctant to tell them. I'm embarrassed to tell them. And I'm not riding for money. I'm not riding for anything important. I'm riding to have fun. But that's still how much it bothers me and how much it affects me. But long story short, I haven't ridden my bike in 2 months. I haven't raced in 3 months. So I went out there thinking that I could ride exactly like I was riding 2 months ago before I quit, and or before I went on this spurt where I haven't been riding, just mainly dealing with work and dealing with all this COVID stuff. Haven't really had the time to ride, and when I have had the time to ride, I've just needed to just reset and do nothing, and because those moments have been very few and far between. So I haven't ridden, so I go back out there, act like my brain still thought that we had been riding. My body knew that we had not been riding. So I was pinballing off of trees. I was bouncing all over the place. At the start, I crashed in the third turn going around. They just watered it, slid out like I was sliding into home base of the World Series in front of God and everybody. And so that's how my race started out. And then, like I said, I started pinballing off of trees, hitting bumps, hitting roots weird, and my front end knifed, and I about went over the bars. Another time, my feet blew off the pegs and blew up on top of the seat, and just getting real sketchy. And then one of the times, I was going over a log that was kind of angled, and I hit it weird, and my seat came up and hit my butt, and it compressed something in my back. And so when that did something, it pinched something in my back, and it was really sharp pain. And from there on out, every single thing that I was hitting, or any time that I tried to shift my weight, it was just an excruciating pain in my back. There was only 3 people in my class. I was probably 2 minutes or more down at this point, and so I made the decision that I was going to save my body. Instead of going out there and risking it and going through all of that to get the same position, most likely, 3rd place out of 3, I decided to call it, and I pulled off the track. And, yeah, like I said, I'm not racing for anything. It's a 25-plus AB race, so not racing for money. I don't have a team. I don't have sponsors. I don't have anybody that I'm trying to impress. I'm racing for myself, and I think it was the right decision just based off of how I was riding and what my body was telling me, but at the same time, it just bugs me. It bugs me. It really bugs me. Yeah, that's about all I got to say about that. And that's probably all that you guys care to hear about that. So that's how my weekend went at the Mideast Hare Scramble. I actually didn't make it out there long enough for Brody Johnson to lap me on his way to a pro overall victory, but that is what he did. Also, we had a National Enduro, the Cherokee National Enduro. Because of all these delays, it was the second round of the NEPG series. And could you believe my surprise when I'm checking timing and scoring and who is clocking off test win after test win after test win after test win? The 2:06 of Josh Toth like both. I can't believe it. This guy has been sitting out for the whole first half of the year with a broken leg. Not only a broken leg, a re-broken leg with a titanium rod through it where he broke it so bad this time he bent the rod. And the doctor didn't even bend the rod back. They just said, work through it. You'll get better. So Josh Toth, this was his second or third race back on the bike at all. And he goes out there and wins the damn thing. So I think going into this weekend myself, and I don't know if anybody else was included in this, I thought it was going to be the Grant Baylor show. Grant won some races over. He came back after injury last year. Won some races over big brother Stu Baylor last year. They battled it down to the wire at the Sumter National Enduro this year, where Grant got third. So I thought it was going to be the Grant Baylor show. Ben Kelly, it was his first race back. I thought that there was a chance that he could go out there and win the race because he won at Sumter. But he's still recovering from a shoulder surgery, which is no fun at all. I think he got fourth on the weekend. But Josh Toth coming out of left field on the gas, putting that FMF Red Bull factory KTM up there in the dead center of the podium and taking the win. So good for Josh. Super stoked with him. We were texting back and forth. We were going to do an interview with Josh for this show, but we decided to push it till next week. And I told him he has to get a podium this weekend to make it worth the wait. So Josh Toth, if he should be on next week, we'll talk to him about this National Enduro win and then just how he's feeling, how his leg's doing. But good for him. If you go look through Josh's Instagram and just scroll through and read the captions, there might not be a happier person out there. I mean, he's stoked to ride a dirt bike, and I'm stoked that he's back on a dirt bike and winning a race this quick. So look forward to see those type of things continue from Josh Toth this year. Grant Baylor, who we just talked about on that factory Sherco machine, the lone East Coast Sherco rider, he grabbed second place on the day. I think he grabbed the second to last test win of the day. Maybe the sixth test win, I'm not sure. But he gets second place on the day. And then Ryder Lafferty gets his first career overall podium at a National Enduro. We mentioned before he is a former Pro 2 champion at National Enduros, but this was his first overall podium. So it is raining like crazy outside. It just started storming. Anyway, so Ryder Lafferty, as I mentioned, he is on the show. We're going to cut to an interview with him here in just a little bit and hear exactly what happened on his day from him. And, yeah, it's a really good one. The other guest on our show tonight, Pro 2 winner Cody Barnes, as I mentioned on that factory racing beta machine. He goes out there, grabs that Pro 2 win. Ironically, a little over a year after his first National Enduro victory. He also won the Cherokee National Enduro last year in the Pro 2 class and was third place overall at that one. I believe he was sixth or seventh place overall this year. But, yeah, some really good info from Cody. Really fun guy to talk to. He's got a really good mindset going into it as well. So we'll hear from Cody here in just a few moments. Craig DeLong on that factory Rockstar Husqvarna machine. He grabs second place just behind Cody Barnes. He's in the mix of all those races as well. And then we just mentioned earlier Jonathan Johnson on that Phoenix Racing Husqvarna. He skipped out on the Mideast race, let little brother go win that one. He went out to the Cherokee National Enduro and put himself on the Pro 2 podium. So good ride by Jonathan and Craig and Cody in that Pro 2 class. They all finished like right next to each other in the overall too, which was pretty cool to see that they are pushing the pace amongst themselves. Our women's elite our women's elite reigning defending National Enduro champion, Mackenzie Tricker. She goes out there and grabs the win on the weekend. She was stoked about that. So awesome to see her get a little bit of confidence, get a little bit of success this season, grabbing that women's elite National Enduro win. Brooke Cosner spent the majority of, I don't know why I said the majority, her majority, not my majority, it's not me majority. She spent last year off the bike with a wrist injury, been battling back from that, healing up from that, and easing her way back into racing. She's had some good races this year at the GNCCs, and now she puts together a good ride at the National Enduro, where she comes home in second place on a Sherco machine as well. And then rounding out that women's elite podium, Rachel Goodish. So Rachel, no stranger to enduro racing, no stranger to any type of racing, and no stranger to podiums. She was on the GNCC podium last weekend, and she is on the National Enduro podium this most recent or past weekend. So that is your women's elite podium, and that is all three of your pro classes at the Cherokee National Enduro. And then also a big shout out to the top amateur at the National Enduro, Will Stephenpiper, racing that AA class. He grabs the AA win, and he was your fastest non-pro rider at the Cherokee National Enduro. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Some good racing, some good battles going on, but unfortunately, I'm a bit of a stranger to a National Enduro. This year, I went to Sumter and I raced. That was my first National Enduro ever, so I'm not quite sure with how they all work, and obviously how spread out they are, and at point-to-point racing rather than circuit racing. It's kind of hard to follow along with it if you're not there. I would imagine it's hard to follow along with it if you are there. So I wish I had some more in-depth stuff or some buzz about the pits to tell you about the National Enduro, but I wasn't there, so I'm not sure what happened. But yeah, I will let Ryder, Lafferty, and Cody Barnes explain to you what happened from their perspective throughout the race, as they both had successful days on the weekend. But other than that, we'll wrap it up with those two interviews. We'll play them back to back. But please, like I said, if you don't mind, subscribe to the show, rate the show, give us a rating, tell a friend about us, share one of our posts. You know what I mean? Send it in a message to somebody that you think might be interested in hearing these interviews, or hearing any other interviews from the show. So trying to make this thing grow. We're trying to give you all what you want and trying to keep you up to date in off-road racing, and more importantly, trying to shine a light on these off-road racers that are going out there and battling this hard. There's a lot that goes into it, and the focus from the beginning is to bring a spotlight to those folks, guys and girls, and really just highlight and showcase what they are doing on a week-to-week basis in these races, National Enduros, the GNCCs, the Full Gas Sprint Enduros, local races all the way from A-Works to IXCR to FTR to Citra to Nitra to Upper Midwest State Regional Champion finalist. Every single damn series you can think of. We're all out there. We're all battling. We're all doing the same thing. So trying to keep it covered. And, yeah, let me know how you like the show, and let your friends know if they like the show. And keep tuning in and keep listening, and I'll keep putting them out to you. With that being said, join us, our first guest of the evening, coming fresh off his first Pro National Enduro podium. He is last year's ECEA champion, riding for the XC Gear Enduro Engineering Husqvarna team, Ryder Lafferty. Ryder, welcome to the show. How's everything going?
All good, man. Stoked to have me on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for taking the time out to talk to us. Know you got a lot going on. Know you're riding earlier today, and I mean, coming straight off the heels, third place overall at the Cherokee National Enduro. How's that feel?
It felt pretty good. I've been chasing the Enduros for a while now, and kind of off and on, but to finally get on the podium, it's been a goal of mine for a while, and I'm pretty stoked with it, you know. Definitely, I think there's room for improvement, and I want to keep chugging along, you know, hopefully get a win, you know, and keep that Lafferty name going.
Yeah, man, and like you said, you've been chasing the National Enduros. Obviously, got some family history there with Mike, who is your uncle. Got some history there in the National Enduros. Did you kind of expect to see a podium overall happen before now, or do you think everything's right on schedule for where it should be?
I think it's right on schedule. I didn't really plan all this to happen. Like I for the past couple of years, I've been, working a regular job. I went to school for welding, and I've just been trying to race and trying to, I've definitely had the goal. I wanted it to be my job and to race and be good at it, have some good results. But it was really tough for a while there. I had a couple bad years, and just it's hard to work and then race on the side. So when I came down here to Stu's Bella's house, I was only planning on coming down for like 2 weeks or so with the coronavirus, and started training, riding a bunch, and I really got a lot of seat time in. And when I started racing again, I had some pretty solid results in the GNCCs, and then definitely with this last enduro. So I quit my day job, and I'm racing full time now. So I think we're on schedule for some good results here in the future.
Heck yeah, man. Told the day job to kick rocks. I'm riding dirt bikes. That's awesome. So, and like you mentioned, coronavirus has obviously affected a lot of things, from race schedules to working schedules to all sorts of stuff. This year, coronavirus kind of worked out in your favor a little bit. I know you had a little bit of a foot injury back in January, and you got more of an extended break, some time off racing, to able to come back earlier in the season. What happened with that foot injury, and how's it doing now?
So in the beginning of the year in January, I was training and actually getting ready for the first NEPG, first enduro, and riding some tight woods, and I whacked my foot on a tree pretty hard and broke my foot pretty bad. It took a while. I took a month and a half off, and then I had surgery and everything, got some plates and screws in there. And it finally healed up, and that's when I was getting ready to get back on the bike, all the coronavirus stuff happened, and we stopped racing. So it kind of worked out good for me to get back and get racing, and because everybody else was kind of had the advantage on me. They were ahead of me with no racing was going on. I got to train and ride and get back up to speed a little bit faster.
Dang. Yeah, and that helps a lot. And also, too, it kind of put some gap in between those rounds to where you didn't have to drop as many rounds before you're able to start racing again. But
yeah, exactly.
I mean, here we are just a few months later, still riding on a foot that I can only assume still gives you some issues, or at the worst case scenario, or at the best case scenario, rather, it's in the back of your mind that foot was injured back in January. But you come out, Cherokee National Enduro, third overall on the podium. I mean, how much of that played into your mind as far as the foot injury? I mean, is it something that you think about going into these races, or are you just going after it?
Not so much during the racing. I definitely think about it during the week. When I'm training, kind of getting after it, riding hard and going fast. It's definitely in the back of my mind just to kind of back it down and not practice so fast and be on the edge. Be at risk of hurting it again or getting another injury. So I try to block it out during the race and not think about that so much. But just in practice, and it you think about it for sure.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, even still dealing with that, you go out there. You got third place in every single test, I think, except the second test where you got fourth. Talk to us about the track. I mean, what were the conditions like? How does that play into your style of riding?
It was pretty good. I'm from New Jersey, and down south here, South Carolina, North Carolina, the pine trees, and kind of it's got a little bit of sand and a lot of clay, but it's kind of similar to home, and I ride pretty good in that stuff, so it was pretty good. I didn't feel the greatest in the beginning of the day. Like first test was really tight, and it was an old trail that they've used in previous years, and it was kind of beat up and rough and just kind of one-lined. And I wasn't digging it too much, and I didn't know how I did or anything in the beginning of the day. I usually wait till do my best that I can in each test, and wait until the fifth and sixth test for someone to tell me, like, hey, you're doing good, you're getting close, or you're in the top 5, or wherever I'm at. But it was solid. I think it was the third test, I was struggling with my bike. The front end was kind of real twitchy and kind of wasn't feeling that comfortable, but I still had some pretty solid times. I was surprised. And then we made some changes the third test to the bike, and it was better from there on out, and I felt like I got back to normal and was pretty solid the last 3 tests.
Dang, so going into each test blind, not really knowing where you stand at that time, does that kind of allow you to really not I don't want to say worry, but not focus on the results and more focus on riding your own race?
Yeah, exactly. I think, with the enduros, you're just racing the clock. You're not racing against the other guys. So for me, I just want to focus on hitting the trail right, and hitting the lines, and doing the best that I can, and not worrying about any of the other racers or anything like that. Just kind of focus on myself. And it's been working out, so it's been good.
Dang. And I know you've worked with Steve Hatch in the past. Are you still working with Steve now, or?
Yeah, I still work with Steve. He's a pretty good dude. He's helped me a lot. We've come pretty far from where I was at before, and he's awesome. Super positive guy, and still does all my training stuff during the week. And then, down south, Stu's been helping me with some little bit of other stuff, but mainly I'm still with Steve Hatch for training.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. I mean, super positive guy, and definitely a very good guy to have in your corner. But I know one of the big things that he focuses on, and I know you probably focus on as well, is the mental toughness and being tough mentally going into the race, and not only physically, but having that mental strength to get through. Do you think that mental toughness comes into play more in the National Enduros, where you are battling against the clock and really battling yourself, or more in the GNCCs where you're dragging on for 3 hours with everyone around you?
Yeah, I think that was the main thing that I've worked with Steve. I already had a solid program with training. I knew I was in shape, but that's kind of the main reason I went with Steve, because I knew he was so good with that mental side. But definitely, I think it's more beneficial for the National Enduros, just like you said, being on your own and kind of racing the clock. It's definitely, you start thinking, your mind gets wandering, and he's helped me out a ton with that stuff. And just, focusing on yourself and picking good lines and not worrying about everybody else. That's definitely something I struggled with before.
Dang. So, I mean, I know that you come fresh off this National Enduro win, but you've also been right there at the GNCCs this year. What are you doing to make sure that get on the podium at the end of the race? I mean, that's my goal. I want to get on the podium. I think I can, honestly, I want to challenge for a win, to be honest, in XC2. I know that it's been stacked. It's a stacked class this year, and it always has been. That's it's been my main focus, kind of. I've always been solid at the Enduros. I grew up riding Enduros, so I kind of know how to race those. But I've always been an Enduro guy, and I want to be known as a GNCC guy as well. So I've been really pushing, really working hard with the GNCCs, and I enjoy them. Actually, they're pretty fun. 3 hours long racing. It's gnarly. It's tough, and the fittest guy wins, and also strategy stuff comes into the play. I definitely want to be up front, when that 2-lap board comes out. Definitely in the podium position, and be in striking distance of that win to get up there on the box. Yeah, like you said, man, that's such a competitive class, but even with it being a competitive class, you've shown that you've had that speed to win races, and not even just get on podium, but to win races. And so, obviously, as the season progresses, I think that's what we can all expect to see as you working your way up there and challenging for those wins, because last year, and I'm sure that you hate to have this brought up, but last year, the Mason-Dixon GNCC, you were out there on rails, lighting up the course, leading it all the way up until the very end. What was that like to get that close?
Man, it was weird. Like, I wanted, like, I think in years past, I probably would have been really pissed off and kind of wish I had a match to light my dirt bike on fire out in the middle of the woods there, like just burn it to the ground. But I remember I like thought about it. Like, I followed the Supercross and motocross pretty heavily, and I think Adam Cintarello, I thought of him when he lost that championship last year with Ferranis. It's like, what are you gonna, what are you gonna do? Like, you got plenty of other opportunities, and you just got to do it again. There's no point of getting frustrated with it, and acting like it's the end of the world. Just got. There's going to be plenty more races and plenty of other times to redeem yourself. And I actually, like, everybody else was more bummed out about it than I was, surprisingly, and kind of pissed off. But I was pretty good spirited after it. It wasn't too bad. I just wanted to get to that next race, and I couldn't wait to go to the next one in Mountaineer. I think I podiumed that one. That was my first podium. I finally put it together, and I've just been chasing. I got a third now. I got a second. So next to be on the top of the box, first place. That's the goal.
Yeah, for sure, and that's an awesome outlook to have on it, as far as the way that you looked at it, and even saying that everyone around you was more upset than you were, because that's actually what I was going to bring up, is how rewarding was that at the very next round in West Virginia there, that you were able to go out there and do exactly what you said, redeem yourself and get up on the podium.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, I feel like once I did that and ran up front there, and I was like, man, I was so close to getting that win. It's like, once you have that feeling of doing it, you can do it over again. And ever since then, I've been pretty consistent, been up front, and kind of know how it goes with these GNCCs. I've kind of figured it out a little bit, with running up front there in that XC2 class. But I'm getting there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, the last question I have is a completely off the wall question, but for my own sake, I have to talk to you about it. I don't know if you know or not, but I'm the announcer for the Full Gas Sprint Enduros. And 2 years ago, the year before last, LLR Raceway, you came out there up in Pennsylvania. That was the year Liam Draper, he went on a very dominant run in Pro 2 throughout that year. But that race at LLR Raceway in Pennsylvania, you had that one all but wrapped up too, leading that one going into the final test of the day, or the final test of the weekend. And I remember very vividly, I forgot who pulled your bike out of the woods, but I remember your bike leaning up against a tree, and I was sitting there waiting for podium. I was like, well, what's up with Ryder? Because I hadn't known about it at that time, because I was running around. And I heard that you had got hurt, and you were on your way to the hospital. And I remember announcing you first, seeing that you're leading throughout the weekend, seeing that someone's going to beat Liam, because it was towards the end of the season too, and we saw Liam winning all those races. I was like, someone's going to beat Liam. And then I just remember your bike leaning against that tree with you nowhere to be found. And it was just an eerie feeling almost. But what happened out there at that round?
Yeah, it was that was I think my second full gas that I've ever done, and I definitely was pretty confident going into it. I knew Liam was going to be solid, and there was a couple other guys, Witowski and some other guys to keep an eye on. And that track was pretty good. That's like the closer one for me, being in Pennsylvania. And I made the trip out there with me and my buddy, and we went and did it. Raced 2 days, and I kind of started out slow, and then I had some good tests, and I was working my way up, and before I knew it, Sunday I was leading, and I had some really good times, and it was a weird deal. I don't really know what happened, but it was just a freak crash, kind of going down a fast, steep road, and all of a sudden, before I knew it, I was kind of on the ground, and I got up, and I knew something was off as soon as I got up, and I dislocated my shoulder. And this is the first time did it too, so it wasn't like, it popped out easy. So it was a good crash. And I actually rode the rest of the test because there was no easy way to get out of the woods. So I rode the whole test with my shoulder popped out, just dangling on my throttle, trying to put my way around there. It's a little sketchy with all the other racers out there, sprinting in the last section.
Yeah.
But I definitely had that one sewed up, and definitely messed up on that. But it worked out. I did a bunch of physical therapy and kind of got back going. And that was the year 2018. I was also racing the enduros, and I won the any Pro 2 class. I think, Pro 2 class in enduros. So I had a good sprint speed then, and I was really, really solid. So it was a bummer to come up short on that one.
Damn. And I feel like I just keep hashing up all these old memories you don't want to talk about, but I'm sorry, man. They're just ones I wanted to ask about.
No. Yeah, no, it's good. I've come far from then, and it's all part of the process.
Yeah, man, and it's awesome to see you rebound from things like that and still be out there running up front. So, I mean, you locked down the Pro 2 championship. As you mentioned, you got your pro podium here. You got a second and a third at GNCCs. The only thing left there is that GNCC win, and obviously chasing a national enduro overall win too. But, I mean, no doubt you got to feel like you're in a good place and on the right track to see all those goals happen.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a big difference, staying down south and, getting a lot of seat time in. I've been riding a lot and training, so it's been really good for me. I hope to keep it up and, definitely reach my goals and get those wins for sure.
Awesome, man. Well, we hope to see you keep it up as well. Any plans to race any of the full gases this year when they start back up, or leaving the focus on the other two?
Yeah, I'm just contracted for National Enduros and GNCCs, but maybe if there's a close one like Pennsylvania or something, or I have an off weekend and I'm feeling like it, I might go out to one of them. I enjoy that kind of format. It's pretty fun.
All right, well, good deal. Heading back up to the Pennsylvania West Virginia line this weekend for the GNCC. Ryder, wish you all the luck in the world, and thank you once again for taking the time out and talking with us, and good luck on the rest of your 2020.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we're going to head to our next guest of the evening. He's a factory beta rider. He is your Pro 2 winner from this past weekend at the Cherokee Enduro, Cody Barnes. Cody, how's everything going today?
Going pretty good. Got some solid riding in, some testing for this weekend, and just did some road biking and things like that. So they went pretty good.
Good deal. And I mean, coming off a Pro 2 victory over the weekend, you mentioned doing some testing today for this weekend. How much different is your setup between National Enduros and GNCCs?
It's honestly not a lot different. We're still going really fast at the National Enduros. So we go a little bit softer on, some clickers and things like that. But it's not a really big difference in setup. Just we soften the suspension a little bit, for the tighter trees when there's tree roots and stumps and stuff, where the stiffer GNCC setup would be a harsher ride. So we went back to the setting that we have for GNCCs and kind of fine-tuned that in what I think the track's going to be like this weekend. So got a good setting and got comfortable on terrain that is going to be like this weekend. So hopefully that pays off.
Dang, and yeah, I didn't even plan to talk to you about setup, but you mentioned it and it got me curious because I'm a little bit of a nerd. But you say different setups. Is that just clicker setups, or are you actually changing valving out at all between the two?
No, so it's just clickers. This year we went with a little bit of simpler route because my National Enduro setup was really close to my GNCC setup last year when we were running two different sets of forks and shock. This year we just decided to go with one setting, and that honestly has been working out really good. So yeah, it makes it a little bit easier on the mechanic. You know, he doesn't have to juggle around the suspension, everything like that, where we just have some settings that I try during the week, you know, for what that track's going to be like for that week. Something similar along that lines. And, you know, we have a good base setting for both GNCC and the National Enduro as well.
Sweet. So you mentioned last year swapping back and forth from some settings and kind of taking from that last year. So you've been with Beta now for a couple seasons, and you're signed on with Beta again. But last year, we saw you in the XC3 class, and obviously riding a 125 there. What's it like, I guess, going back and forth between the 252 stroke and a 125 last year? Or I guess more importantly, what's it like not having to make that switch this year and staying on the 250?
For me, I mean, you know, I really enjoyed riding the 125, but for me, you know, I'm 6'4", so I'm a bigger guy, and so I wasn't necessarily wanting to stay on the 125, I guess you could say. But for the 250, you know, I really like the bikes. Like I said, I'm a little bit bigger, so it kind of suits my riding style a bit more than, you know, the 125 you had to. But there was really good cross training going from the 125 to the 250. But this year, just primarily all 250 practicing. That's what I run at National Enduros and GNCCs and Sprint Enduros when I attend those. And I'm really happy with the bikes this year. They made some pretty big changes with them, with suspension and the frame change and things like that. So they made really good steps in the right direction. And I'm really happy with how the bike's handling, how the bike's running, and stuff like that. So this year's been going pretty good so far.
Dang, good deal. And Beta is one of the bikes that I've never personally ridden a Beta, but I've heard all about them, and so it's interesting to hear about the changes that they've made this year. And I haven't heard anything. Everything's been good feedback about it, including what you were just saying. So that's awesome to be a part of that development and be on the team and see those changes between last year and this year. But you did mention that with your size and everything, you weren't too bummed to be getting off the 125. But last year, I mean, we saw you about end of three-peat. I think you were on your way. You were getting wins. I think you were leading the points at the time that you had to step away from the knee injury. Is there any part of you that kind of, I don't want to say missed out on that championship, but is there any part of you that wanted to go back this year or maybe entertain the XC3 thing this year to get a championship, or were you full speed ahead on XC2?
I mean, yeah, there was definitely a part of me that, you know, it was really hard to watch from the sidelines those last four races and watch the championship, you know, slip away. It would have been huge for me. Personally, it would have been my first GNCC championship, and also for Beta, a manufacturer that, you know, doesn't have as many people as, you know, what KTM does, and to have a bike as, you know, as known as a KTM 125, to have, you know, a bike that had only been out a year with Beta, and have that beating one of the biggest manufacturers in, you know, the off-road and motorcycle community. It would have been huge for myself, would have been huge for the brand, and it was a really big bummer stepping away. And there is a part of me that, you know, wanted to win that championship, you know, maybe possibly try to win it this year, but at the same time, I looked at it as I felt that I could progress more with going to the XC2 class, and that's what fueled me to go to the XC2 class. I thought that I would grow more faster going to the XC2 class. I knew kind of where I stacked up from the 125 and overall finishes and stuff, and I think that I have gotten faster since moving to the XC2 class, so I think the call was correct in my part to not stay back in that XC3 class and go to the XC2.
Very, very well said and well thought out. But I mean, going back on that with the whole beta and getting a championship, I mean, you come out swinging at Sumter National Enduro, second place there. This is because of coronavirus kind of getting in the way and delaying everything. We go back racing the National Enduro at the Cherokee National Enduro, and you come out with a win. So, I mean, obviously your goals are set on that Pro 2 championship, but where do you think you stand now after 2 rounds of National Enduro racing?
Yeah, in the Pro 2 class of National Enduro, the field's really, really big this year. You have myself, Jonathan, Craig's now in that as well. So that one's going to be, a tough one. But I believe that Beta, I believe their bikes are really, really good in that tight technical stuff. The handling of the bikes and the turning of the bikes really work good in the tight technical stuff. So for me, last year I only got to attend 4 rounds of the National Enduro, and I really enjoy running the National Enduros. The whole entire promoter, Alan, the whole entire crew there does a great job with all the events. So it's I'm still learning some of the National Enduro, because I only got to do 4 of them. But, I really like the events. I like the tighter, more technical stuff. And to race against the clock, it always keeps things interesting. So, definitely that's my goal this year. I want to win the Pro 2 championship. I feel like, me and Liam would have had a really good battle, in the Pro 2 class last year. And obviously with my knee injury, I had to step away, and I still ended up thrown in that, but, I want to win that championship for Beta this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're in a really good spot to do that. Like you mentioned, there is a lot of tough competition chasing you down and in that Pro 2 class. But last year you mentioned you had a limited schedule. You only raced 4 National Enduros. You ended up getting a Pro 2 win just over a year ago, and then you backed that up shortly after at the Cherokee National Enduro, where you got the win there last year, and that time you were on the overall podium. So going from that win at Cherokee last year and getting 3rd place overall, and then getting the win in Pro 2 this year, what's different about these 2 wins? Is there anything different as far as where you're at and where you're trying to get to?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the conditions were completely different this time around than last year. Last year, it was raining through that whole event. It was kind of a muddy event. So the conditions were completely different. As far as, how I prepped for it was kind of the same. I think a big part that played out, too, that made this one different was, in the 3rd test, my master cylinder, I had a part fail on it, and I lost rear brakes about 2 miles into the 3rd test, and I lost a bunch of time. And I thought the day was over. I thought that, having to make up with the competition that I was racing against. And, my mechanic Sam and Jameson, they did an awesome job. They got me a whole new brake system, and, got me ready for those last 3 tests. And I never gave up, and they didn't let me give up on myself, even when I thought the race was over. And to be able to win and come back from, I think at one point in time, I was a minute, maybe even over a minute off of the lead, to be able to come back in the last 3 tests and make up that time, I think that was one of the biggest things that makes this one different than, the other ones that I've had.
Yeah, like you mentioned, your tests were second, 4th, and then taking the win in the last 3 to come back from that gap and put yourself up there in the middle of the podium. So awesome riding by you, and I mean, yeah, just like you said, you got to feel good coming off of that one going into this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. It does build some confidence, Obviously, running against Craig and Jonathan, those guys are both, really good riders, and they're both, like I said, they're both really tough competition at the GNCC and National Enduro. So, having those good tests against those guys, tells me that, I'm not lacking in the speed. I just have to put the pieces together still. And, this year in XC2, I'm still learning. Every race, I'm still learning more things. With this new pace that we're running, hydration's playing a bigger factor. We're running higher heart rates. We're pushing our bodies harder than, what I've had in the past because that intensity has been elevated. So every race I'm learning more and more about my body. We're learning more about the bikes and things like that. My mechanic Sam, he's been doing a great job. We're figuring out, as silly as it sounds, we're still figuring out, if we can make 3 laps and be on the pit schedule that, the other manufacturers are, like Husqvarna, Yamaha, things like that, instead of being on, a 2-lap pit. So we're still learning on things like that. And, but I mean, overall, I'm happy with how the XC2 season's been going, to be my rookie year and, consistently be, right around that top 5, in the top 5. And this last one I finished just outside the top 5, only 4 seconds off of the top 5. So my goal this year, be consistent, stay healthy, and I would really like a podium next to by the end of this year.
Yeah, and I mean, you picked a hell of a time to make it your XC2 rookie season because I think this is the deepest that the XC2 class has been that I can remember. I mean, I feel like there's 6 or 7 of you guys that can go out there and win races on any given weekend, and I think the level of competition in that XC2 class particularly is just insane this year. But you've had a couple 4th place finishes. You've been just off the podium and getting close to that podium spot. But as you mentioned, I mean, obviously the goal is working towards that. Do you feel like everything is on pace for you so far this year in your rookie season?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some learning curves, definitely. Everyone does with this first year going into XC2, their rookie year, everyone has those little things that, you look on paper when you're in, a different class and like, oh, I'm getting, 5th, over with adjusted time and everything like that. So you look at it that you should be able to finish 5th in XC2, but then when you go into that class, there's just different dynamics of the class, the pace off the beginning. And like I said earlier, the hydration comes into factor, the pit stops, everything comes into factoring how that race goes. As far as my season, I think that I'm on track for a podium. We had a little bit of bad luck at Coker that kind of prevented me, but like you said, this year the XC2 class is it's very deep field. I mean, there's 7 riders that are on factory teams that are all competing in the XC2 class, and then you have, even privateers that aren't on the factory team but are on really solid teams that are smaller, and their riders are also, doing very well. So, like you said, there's several people out there that I think, are capable of top 3 finishes, and, there's 8, 9 guys that are all battling for that top 5, positions as well. So I think if I can continue getting top 5s and just keep plugging away and working harder and, getting closer to that XC2 podium, I think if I can get one my rookie year, that'll be really good for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and that is nowhere even close to out of the realm of possibility, and I think that we'll definitely be seeing you battling up there for podiums. Like I mentioned, you already got a couple 4th place this year, and only trending upward as far as the speed and getting back to normal again, which I say that, I mean, that's got to be – I haven't had a full knee surgery, a gnarly knee surgery. I had some meniscus stuff done, but coming off of that at the end of last season and healing from that, is that playing a role in your riding and in your training now, or is that a bump that we've already passed, what's long gone, it's in the past, don't even think about it anymore?
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of in the past. I tore my meniscus in half, and it went behind my kneecap. And it locked my knee out. I couldn't straighten it. So because I was younger, they went the option of repairing it instead of taking it out, because with taking it out, it made my knee bone on bone. So it would have worn out all my other ligaments in my knee. So I had it repaired, and with how everything went and how I feel, they deemed that it was healed 100% and that everything grew back together. So as far as me having any problems, I don't have any problems with it. The only thing I can't do is I can't bend my knee all the way. I can't go to, as they would say, zero, where your calf is touching your thigh, which on a dirt bike, it never is. So I don't have any problems with that. So that's been in the past. One of the things that I do think it helped me realize was that I needed to smooth out and limit my foot dabs in the corners and things like that, just to try and prevent that. When I came back, that was something that I really focused on. And by no means am I a super smooth rider, but I definitely improved some in my perspective of it. So I think it actually helped me smooth out some. And, I'm just, through the whole injury, I was just very thankful that, Rodney Smith, my mechanics at Beta, and the whole Beta team stuck behind me through the time. For me, it was my first injury like this. So I had never experienced anything like it. And to have those guys support me and then support me in the following year and still believe in me, that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And it's got to be great to have guys like Rodney Smith, and I know you do some stuff with Scott Plessinger and stuff too. It's got to be good to have guys like that in your corner. And I mean, speaking of Scott and Rodney, even how much are those guys involved in your program and helping you out throughout the season?
Yeah, so Scott does all of our pre-season training, and once the kind of preseason is done, Scott has his track in Ohio and things like that. So he doesn't do too much training because he has other stuff going on. But all preseason, he does a great job down in Florida, training us, making sure that I'm prepared for the season, and I feel like he does a great job. Ron's very active in, talking with us, making sure, how we're preparing for the races, giving suggestions with bike if it's like a super dusty race. So like Florida, for instance, Rodney was at that event, and my mechanic Sam came up with the two strokes when the air filters get clogged. Obviously, with them being carbureted, they are very finicky. And Rodney, with his experience, worked with Sam, and we came up with an air filter plan that worked really good and prevented my bike from running poorly when the air filter got clogged and everything like that. So having Rodney and his experience with it, and him being involved is a big help. The guy championships, so he obviously knows what it takes to win championships, and so that's really cool to have him supporting us and helping us out on the weekends and the weekdays with like what we need to do to prep for the race, or what we could be doing in our training to possibly help us even more.
Dang. Yeah, man. It sounds like you're in a really good spot, both with your team and both physically and the level that you're riding at. And it looks like things are really going well for you. And I hope they continue to go well for you through the rest of 2020. I guess my last question would be, going back to you talking about like getting the fuel strategy right. Is that something that, Mike Wachowski, we saw him on XC2 podiums on a Beta, and now you're on that Beta. Are the fuel problems, was that something that they were battling back with Mike as well? Like, is that a two-stroke thing versus all the other teams being on four strokes?
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's a fuel issue or anything like that. I think Mike,
not an issue, more just a strategy. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Mike was able to make 3 laps sometimes. But me and Mike also have a very different riding style. Mike is a rider. He's very calculated, where I kind of have more of an aggressive riding style, and I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage. It's just something that the two-stroke, with it being carbureted, it it takes more gas. It's how the bike is. So, it's just something that it's going to be like that. And we're working towards, getting it on 3 laps so that we're on the same pit stop as everyone else.
Gotcha. And yeah, I didn't mean that as a fuel problem by any, or a 2-stroke problem by any means, because like you said, you have that thing out there screaming. So it definitely has their advantages as well. But yeah, man, like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time and talking to us, and heading into this weekend, man, good luck. I know you're chasing that GNCC podium, and then congratulations once again on grabbing this Pro 2 victory this past weekend at the National Enduro.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for having me. It's been a good time.
For sure, man. Anytime. And we'll see you this weekend.
Have a good